few months ago, as a local councillor, I'd kind of recognised I've started to try and speak up about this, both within the Labour Party as a party member, and also as a local councillor, and I met such vicious resistance, really, that I recognised it's going to be really difficult as a lone voice. I've tried to put a motion to one of the council meetings in connection with the violent, kind of the pushing and the violence towards the woman who was in St Peter's Square. There was a Kelly J. Keane event, and this woman was getting pushed by a trans activist, male, and the police were there, they witnessed it, they went over, and I saw it on the video on Twitter, and I thought, oh, they're going to ask her if she wants to push charges, but it turned out that they were actually asking her to move along. And I was horrified by that. So I tried to get a motion together generally about public violence against women, public aggression against women from men. Something that I thought we'd all be able to agree on. It wasn't too sort of, in the weeds really of this discussion, that could open up the discussion amongst councillors. And I sent it out to all of the other councillors, and there's over 70 of us. And in order to bring a motion, you have to propose it, but you have to have a seconder in order for it to be brought onto the agenda, and then you have 2 minutes to persuade them that they're happy to debate it, and then they can vote that down, or they can vote to debate it, and then you have the debate and you make some decisions. So it was a tumbleweed. Out of over 70 councillors, I didn't get one person from any party or any independent who was willing to support that motion, and it was just about that issue of aggression, public aggression towards women. So I realised very quickly, as a one lone voice in this huge chamber, I'm not going to get very far, so I need a community of people who are willing to come along and speak, because we have public speakers at council meetings, and that can be really, really impactful. It really is hard for councillors to make decisions against the public. If the public come along to public meetings and they speak powerfully on a subject, it makes it very awkward for them. So I thought, well, I'll join WRN, Women's Rights Network, because I'd been to one of the hustings that they held when there was some elections in Wales, met some women there from Wales, and I thought, God, this is great, it's an amazing organisation, so I need to join. I'll ask them if they'll let us set up a branch in Cheshire. I'll see if I can make some turf friends in Cheshire who are willing to come along to the council meeting and speak up. And if I can find a seconder, then we might be able to get a decent debate going around some of this. We've got really low numbers, even though I've used my councillor Facebook page to promote it. I've had teachers get in touch with me behind the scenes to say, oh my God, it's horrifying what's happening in schools, but I'm terrified to speak up because I'm just worried that I'm going to be ostracised or even disciplined and potentially lose my job. And it's the same with councillors. I think a lot of councillors are aware. They can't claim that they're not aware of the injustices against women and the risks around child safeguarding and all of these other issues. I don't think councillors can claim that a lot of the public aren't aware of what's happening in schools and in women's prisons and what have you. But I think that most councillors are aware, but they're just terrified of this backlash. And so the question really is, how do we bring together supportive members of the public and councillors who are feeling as if they're teetering on the edge of being brave enough to speak up and say something about this? How can we bring them together in a network so that they can provide each other with encouragement and support when it gets rough? And also share paperwork, if we've got a draft motion that we've taken, or if there's been an investigation or a freedom of information request about, the equality impact assessment, was it carried out properly? We can support each other in process, really, in procedure around that, and the wording of things. And then if people find that they're being disciplined or investigated for speaking out on these issues, we can then try and see if we can access some legal support through those networks as well, because it's a lonely place to be in that position, out on your own, subject to disciplinary within a system that is very, very biased and where people are very, very brainwashed. It's really a terrifying situation for anyone to be in. So that's where the idea of the Councils That Care network came along. The full name, and it was basically just, I haven't got time to set one up, I've got no resources, I'm on a really low income, but I just thought, oh my God, I need this network, I need this support, and it needs to be cross-party, because I think none of the mainstream major parties are really standing up for women or children or child safeguarding on this issue. And for me, actually, it's become the primary issue. I think if any political party whatever they think about poverty, whatever they think about war or anything else, if they can't get things right for women and children, they might as well go home and give up being involved in politics, because it's the most important thing that you need to get right. And I do think that if you can get that right, then everything else will kind of hopefully flow from that. A lot of those other things that we argue about in politics, I think, would sort themselves out a lot more easily and readily if we took proper account of the needs of women and children within society. So that's become my number one political priority now, and I'm politically homeless as a result. So it needs to be cross-party, it needs to be for anyone in any political party or none, for elected councillors, for anyone who's got experience of working within legal, you know, for example, within councils, because we've got someone within our network who that was their previous role within a council. They're very, you know, clued up on the council's obligations and how we can hold the council to account around those. It's a very small fledgling network. Councillors Who Care is, I couldn't fit it all on Twitter handle, so the Twitter handle is @Care Councillors. My Twitter handle is @SocialistMandy. I'm politically on the left, although I don't think there is a political left anymore. I've completely lost faith in that. And then we've got an email which is councillorsThatCare@gmail.com. And we've got a signal group, so we've got a really bare bones, you know, low budget, low profile thing going on. I'm looking for, and I have spoken to Heather Binning from Women's Rights Network, whether they would provide us, or if there's any, you know, if anyone's connected with Sex Matters or any of these organisations that have a high profile online, what we could really do with is a public space on that website to land our documents and to land updates and to encourage other councillors to come and become involved and let them know that that support network is out there. I don't want it to just be something that's publicised amongst Women's Rights Network existing members, because that's a really small pool. And, you know, as I've said, it was a tumbleweed and it was just me willing to speak up. Within the last couple of weeks, we had another council meeting. I discovered through asking, because as a councillor you can ask formal questions, as well as bringing motions to council. You can put written questions together and they have to answer them, and in public it gets published, you know, with the agenda. And you can then ask supplementary questions. So I asked loads of questions around our influence in different positions with regards to women's rights and child safeguarding and trans inclusion. And so the first answers I got back from the leader of the council were very vague, and then the supplementary answers that I got back were absolutely horrifying. So I'm following up on some of those things now. And one of the things that I managed to uncover was to do with our trans inclusion guidance to schools. Similar guidance was pulled in Oxfordshire Council after it was taken to a judicial review. It didn't get to the actual judgment, but they could see that it was going to be ruled against, and so they pulled it before it got to that point, as I understand it. And then 14 other councils who had similar trans inclusion guidance pulled their guidance as well. Ours is exactly the same, pretty much word for word, as that guidance that was pulled. So within Cheshire West, we're standing strong, we're digging in, and we're carrying on with our horrendous guidance. And that guidance includes kind of allowing children to decide whether or not their parents should be informed that they've socially transitioned at school. It involves allowing children to decide which bathroom they're going to use, which changing room they're going to use, which bedroom they will sleep in, you know. And when I've also, the head teacher of my son's school is credited within this council guidance to schools as having helped them pull this guidance together. So I've also, as a parent and as a councillor, been trying to hold him to account as well. And I asked him, what if you've got children or parents or teachers who don't go along with trans ideology, don't believe that it's possible to change sex, and actually believe that some of this stuff is quite politically biased and potentially harmful to children? You know, there's the CAS review findings or interim review findings, and there's lots of evidence that we really need to be concerned about. What if you've got parents, teachers and children that don't go along with that ideology? And he said, I haven't met with him, this was by email, more or less, that it's fine for people to have those views outside of school, but within school those views aren't welcome. So your whole freedom of speech has gone out of the window as well. And the really frightening thing is, as you know, a number of people have said already, is that you will sometimes get some promising signs like the CAS review or like a minister saying that we're going to stop people, men from being housed with women, vulnerable women in prisons, and you get a little, sliver of hope, but it's like a brick wall, nothing changes, or someone that's moved on into a different role, and it doesn't happen. And we're the last line of defence globally here in the UK in terms of women's rights and child safeguarding, and all of these different areas within prisons, within policing, strip search guidance I've been working with Kathy Larkin on as well. Cheshire's excelled itself in that as well. We're the only constabulary within the country who've actually implemented that, so that a male police officer can strip search a woman if he just says that he's a woman, doesn't have to have a GLC. And even if he did, that's state-sanctioned abuse, sexual abuse of women. So and we've gone ahead and done it. We're the only one in the country who has done so. Cheshire is a black hole. So if you know anyone who's in Cheshire who's turfy, please put them in touch with me. Please follow me on Twitter. If you know anyone who can provide pro bono legal advice, we need that. We need that support, because these people who are willing to speak up are on the front line. And as I said, this is the last front line really. It's the last defence in this battle, and we need to make sure that we win it. And every time someone is taken out, a teacher for not going along with it, or a counsellor is disciplined or whatever for not going along with it, and that succeeds, another part of that defence crumbles. So thank you for your time.